Good morning, everybody. It's Mark Schultz here, and I am live this morning with another edition of our Recovery in Aviation. You know that we've been focusing on discussions on recovery in aviation all year long. It's a passion of mine. People tell me it's an obsession of mine to focus on recovery in aviation. I want you to stick with me because we're going to have a great conversation today about small to medium enterprises. And what does that mean? That means small to medium businesses. And I have a couple of guests with me here today who are experts in this space. And we're going to talk about how businesses are going to lead the economic recovery in aviation. Hey, join me. I got a couple of guests here right now. Before I bring them in and introduce them, help me out and help the industry out and share this stream. We're actually live here today. We're going to be taking live questions from you here in the audience. And so this is going to be a great conversation today. Today, I have two experts with me. In the picture here, you'll see I have Dr. Raymond Davies and I have Fiona Mckay, who are my guests here today. Hey, welcome.
Hi,
Raymond. How are you?
Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Fiona. Raymond, where are you located today? Where are you coming to us from?
Well, I'm actually coming from the south coast of England, so it's just gone dusk here. So, yes, right here on the south coast of England.
Very good. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to get more into that in a minute. Fiona, where are you coming from?
I am in Carnation, Washington.
Oh, excellent. All right. And that's for people that don't know that's in the Seattle or the Puget Sound area of Washington. So great. Thanks for joining us here today. Hey, listen, Raymond, I want to kick this off just so people can get to know the two of you real quick, and then we'll get into our subject. But Raymond, who is Raymond Davies and what do you do?
So I'm an international strategist and really focused on the SME sector and the small, medium-sized enterprise sector. And the dynamics within that chain and the supply chain dynamics.
Great. And you're going to hear them talking about SMEs. And when they're talking about that, they're talking about small to medium enterprises. So we're excited to hear your expertise on that subject today. Hey, Fiona. Fiona, you've been with me before on some broadcasts, and I really appreciate it. And you've brought some great energy, to this broadcast. Why don't you tell our listeners again today, who is Fiona Mckay and what do you do?
Yeah, Mark, thanks for having me. I've learned so much from you with your broadcasts. So I'm an executive coach and a corporate trainer to many aerospace companies. And I most recently joined BABC, which is British American Business Connections, as their aerospace board chair.
Excellent. Hey, I feel a little bit at a loss here. I don't have as cool of an accent as you guys. What should I do? Should I talk different?
You can try a British accent if you'd like.
No, thanks.
And there's such a variety as well, Mark. So there you go.
We don't speak the Queen's English, though, I'm afraid, but we think it's cooler.
I'll just butcher it. So I'll stick with my American accent. I've lived all over the U.S. and traveled all over the world, so it ends up being a bit of a muddle, on the accent that we have. So very good. Well, listen, I'm really pleased to have you guys here, and I'm looking forward for us to have a conversation and a discussion here. Hey, listen, I'm going to kick this off right now, and I want to introduce to you, the background and the experience that Raymond Davies, brings to us. And Raymond is really has focused recently on small to medium enterprises, small businesses, and how they're making an impact, in the industry. And this whole discussion that we're having surrounds recovery in aviation. And so I felt like it was a very important topic for us to talk about today, so that we could talk about recovery in aviation and how small to medium businesses are going to lead in that recovery. And I know that Raymond has focused on this. Raymond, tell us a little bit about the struggle that you had and why did you start looking at this problem or this business challenge of small to medium enterprises? Why did you head down that road?
Again, working with a lot of medium enterprises, small and medium enterprises, I suddenly realized that we tend to look at it in isolation and look for growth in isolation, when in fact it's really very much about the supply chain dynamics in which you operate. That really is there not a better way of doing this rather than the struggle in growth and looking from your own point of view? What is it within the supply chain dynamics? What could there not be competitive edge looking at ways in which we can do that differently? So that was really, what is it? What could we do? What is the aspects within those supply chains? Could we not look at a better approach to this?
Okay, well, good, because all of us want to be looking at, businesses and how we can evaluate the difficult economic times and make adjustments and changes in order to be successful. Fiona, you've done a lot of work with, a lot of different businesses over the years. what's your perspective on the struggle or the challenge, for small to medium enterprises right now at this time?
Well, for me, I see the biggest struggle being in those that have not got a diversified portfolio. I know that a lot of people, particularly here in the Puget Sound, are focused on commercial aviation and in particular specific programs, but there's so much more out there in aerospace, with defense and UAV and lots of different areas. And by diversifying both within aerospace and with outside of aerospace, it's going to ensure that you've got more long-term sustainability.
Yeah. Okay. That's really true. I mean, the whole aspect of diversification is so true. This year, for those of you watching and are following this series on recovery in aviation, that I've interviewed over 200 companies and leaders, this year. And one of the things that we've learned is that there's a lot of different strategies and tactics. But, you just said that word right there, diversification. That's really, really important. For us to understand what's happening around us and shift to those places and those positions. Now, I'm going to take this back to Raymond for a minute. Raymond, now you have been examining this challenge and you wanted to look at it, and you were sort of in this struggle, and you came to this place where you said, hey, you want to do something about it. Tell us what brought you to the place where you said you wanted to do something about it, and what did you do?
It's really interesting. I wanted to find out what's the actual power for the small and medium-sized enterprises in their own right, and the supply chains themselves. I think a lot of us kind of look at dealing with the original equipment manufacturers, looking up people who purchase from us. It's another way in which we can work together, collaborate together, and move into new markets. I know it's quite a bright concept, but then to really look at what is the true power within the supply chains themselves and small medium enterprises within them.
Okay, well, you brought up that word small, or you brought up that word supply chains a couple of times in the same context of small to medium enterprises. Why did that present a unique challenge or a unique situation? What is the correlation between supply chains and small to medium enterprises, and why is that a challenge right now?
I think, again, because what's been happening over the years and over the decades is, of course, that drive towards, rather than most of stuff being happening within, like I say, the large aerospace companies, they've been pushing out that work down to the supply chains and dependence onto those supply chains, which is those individual small, medium-sized enterprises. And in a strange way, that's created a core competencies that could be used in different ways, particularly if they can collaborate together and look at new markets, as Fiona has put forward.
Okay, Fiona, have you seen supply chains being impacted during this year, by different aerospace companies?
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to name any specific names because that might get me in trouble. It's interesting. We saw everything happen with Boeing and Airbus and all the big guys, and it took a couple of months to really start hitting a lot of the smaller suppliers. And it's been really disheartening to learn about some of the stories that some of these suppliers have gone through as the impacts have rolled out. And I see them all struggling alone. And it's like, well, how are you going to start talking to one another? Because your resource pool is going to be smaller. Your opportunities are going to be less frequent as some of the bigger aerospace companies start to merge together. So how can you actually use that collective knowledge, those collective skills, and that collective experience to build your way out of this?
Yeah, no, those things are really important. And here in the Puget Sound, we've kind of had this trifecta effect here where, we had this effect on the economy, from the coronavirus that impacted it, and the 737 MAX, I'm going to say it. I know you didn't want to talk about it, but I'm going to say it. I've interviewed people that have talked about the 737 MAX, and people have talked about the 787 and the impact that it's had. So for those of you, I'm sure everybody knows this, but the 737 MAX has been grounded for almost over a year and a half, and they've just now, are to the place where they're going to let it start flying again. And then, yeah, exactly. And then the 787, there was a decision made to move the assembly line, out of the Puget Sound area. And so between the economy and those two factors in this region, there's been some real impact to people's supply chains. And one of the things that I've heard people tell me is that they have definitely had to replan their supply chains. All right. Now, there's been a lot of positive things, and that's why we continue to talk about this, like space, aerospace, space travel, things like that, and other markets that have emerged because this area, the Pacific Northwest, is such a rich area of aerospace manufacturers. that we know that people have to shift. Now, Raymond, I'm going to come back to you a minute and say, listen, you saw this problem, you saw how supply chains are being impacted by what's happening around us, and you said, I want to research this. Well, my question is, so what? What was the outcome of that? What happened, or what happened from the work that you've been doing to examine that in more detail?
So the great thing about the research is it really showed that the true power within the small, medium-sized enterprises within the supply chains. But the key part was really looking at that kind of collaborative approach in the core competencies, maybe looking at new markets. And you've mentioned space. I think the increased spending in defense and some of the core ideas and that, a whole lot of other innovational aspects coming in as well. So it's always look from the perspective of who can I work with and collaborate with in a different way that maybe creates those new opportunities.
Okay, all right. Well, those things are super powerful, because we want to be able to talk to people about what can you be doing out there today to be able to impact your business, to be able to create success. Listen, something that I've learned, over the years, and Fiona, I know you know this because you're in the consulting business, is that you have a couple of paths you can go in your life. You can go try to figure out everything on your own, or you can try to look at what's happening around you and what people are doing and model after that, and use that knowledge to be able to create success in your own situation or your own environment. And so what we're trying to do here, what we've been trying to do all year long, is help people to be able to see that others are doing things to create success. All right. And so I want to kind of shift this conversation now over to the conversation about, creating of success. All right. So, let me turn this question to you first, Raymond, and then we'll come back over to Fiona. But why is there, Raymond, why is there an opportunity right now? What has this current, pandemic done to us? And why does that create a unique opportunity and time for small to medium enterprises?
And I think particularly in the aviation industry, the tailspin that's happened in aviation is almost brought the shock effect to not being comfortable and really looking at core competencies. So there's a huge opportunity now to kind of look at the increased government spend, trying to support that issue from the government point of view. But in the same context, really look at it yourself, really, that you can be a bit more braver and kind of really look at your strategy. I'd say, look, from our core competencies, could we move into these new areas of opportunity? We talk about defense, but also there's been classic examples, as we've all known, moving from aerospace companies and companies and supply chains moving into the healthcare arena with ventilators on the UK side. So I think it's really looking and having a much more perspective of what opportunities it now presents. In a sense, you've been forced into that situation with this sudden shock effect on the supply chain.
Okay, all right. Well, basically, you have three people on this broadcast here today. For those of you that are watching, that have years and years of experience in working with different companies and aerospace companies and manufacturers and things like that. And so I just wanted to comment is that I got a few comments coming in, and I always like to tell people is that I like to know where people are watching this broadcast from. Hey, I see somebody came in from the UK, and I got people from other places, but I typically have people from all around the world watching these broadcasts. And if you're watching here today, I'd really appreciate it if you just throw a comment in there and tell me where you're watching from. We're actually broadcasting this broadcast on about 10 different platforms, between LinkedIn and Twitter and between YouTube and places like that. Is that some places you can comment and some you can't, but we're going to be going into a question and answer time in a minute, but it would be great if you guys could let me know where you're at. Just give us a shout out in the box here. And then in a moment, we're going to be taking some questions. So if you want to throw any questions here about businesses and growth and change, we still got some time here. We got, another 30 or almost 30 minutes here yet where we're going to be taking some questions. And so throw your questions out there, and we'll get you online here, and we'll take your questions online. Listen, Fiona, I want to come back to you for a minute. All right. Is that we're talking a little bit about, why there's an opportunity and what is the opportunity for small to medium enterprises is that, how does somebody tap into this opportunity? Let me start with you, then I'm going to switch over to Raymond. But what do you do to tap into an opportunity like this?
Well, for me, the first thing that you have to do is you have to really let go of your association with the C word. And by the C word, I mean competition. I think, socially, we are brought up to be in competition with one another, and you have to break up with that to be able to collaborate. And so could you repeat the question, Mark?
Yeah, sure. No, I wanted to ask the question is that, what is the opportunity right now, and how do we tap into that? So we switch over to how do we, Yeah, we switched over to how do we tap into that opportunity? What does somebody do to tap into that opportunity right now? And Raymond, if you have some thoughts on that, jump in too, so.
Yeah.
So number one is break up with the C word and get comfortable. You're going to be more successful if you collaborate. And I see that with you, Mark. I see that with Dean Cameron. There's all kinds of places where we can do that right now. And so get used to the idea that collaborating is good for business. And in order to be able to collaborate, you need to take a look at some of your processes and some of your communication strategies. When I was at Rolls-Royce, we were developing a new technology with other companies. And so it was all about having really good communication processes, understanding how you're going to manage your intellectual property, but understanding that you need each other for the greater good. And to actually build those trusting relationships, you've got to get out there and you've got to meet people. And yeah, that's not so easy when you can't go to conferences and events right now, but there are loads of ways to engage virtually. So I would say that the number one thing people should look at right now is building those relationships and breaking up with the word competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Fiona, let me just comment on that, and then I'm going to pass it over to Raymond. But, as far as collaboration is concerned, I've been doing a ton of collaboration this year, and it's really, increased my business this year. Things have grown dramatically, and really, I have gone out there. I've put myself out there, and been, working to collaborate with people and meet with people virtually. And it makes a tremendous, difference in my business. It creates new opportunities in my business. It creates new business connections. There may be opportunities to collaborate, like Fiona and I, for example, collaborating on things, and so that's such an important part. But Raymond, let me come back to you now and say that, how does somebody tap into this newly found opportunities that you're looking at right here?
I think the other aspect is the government. The governments are now more focused on understanding the importance of small, medium enterprises in the recovery that will come. So obviously they're putting out there from a more procurement aspect. The other aspect, of course, is they're looking for any ways in which they can help in this collaborative type of approach that can enable supply chains, new collaborations to come together for that procurement. I think also all the usual trade agencies and can work together as well, and we can tap into that to find the very people you should be connecting with and coming up with new ways in which you can use your core competencies that doesn't necessarily compete with each other, but allows that collaboration into new market areas. Okay. And I think there's just a huge opportunity for that at this moment in time.
Yeah, very good. Hey, listen, I like to, well, just a second, as we're going through, Fiona, I like to acknowledge people because people like to know that we're actually listening and watching. And so, I'm going to throw a few names up there. We got the first one up there. We just have a LinkedIn user, which I know they're in the UK. And if you could just help me out and throw some of those up there over here, just give a click on them right there. So we have somebody who's, from the UK, and they're using words I don't understand, like cheers, mates. And then we have a visitor from Belgium here. We have Ivan Remelis, and welcome from Belgium. And we have Lysandre from Washington, D.C. Thanks, Lysandre. Thanks for joining us. And then jump down to the last one. I'm going to actually move to a question here because I think that this is important. Is that Ivan asks the question: collaborate or consolidate? Fiona, you were going to try and jump in and say something there. Let me start with you. Is that we're talking about collaboration. So how does consolidation fit in right now within the industry?
Ooh, I don't necessarily feel well positioned to answer that, but I mean, personally, I don't want to see too much consolidation because I think that pushes down innovation. I've been privileged to work for some very large companies and then have a really good insight into small and medium-sized companies when I was with Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance, and just the innovation, not just with the products, but with the management style, the teams in the small and medium-sized businesses, it's just fabulous. And I don't want to see that go away.
Yeah.
No, if I could jump in there, Mark, I think it's exactly on a follow-on from that. And it's very much the innovation that comes from small, medium-sized enterprises and getting them through into the market. So again, really focusing on that innovative side and looking at ways of bringing that through is the key to the door here.
Yeah. Raymond and Fiona, I think with all the people that I've interviewed this year, let me make a comment on the collaboration and consolidation part, is that I've seen a lot of businesses that have business models that work in this economy and some that don't work in this economy. Okay. And so some of them have been able to change and adjust and pivot and shift, and that's good. But others, they haven't made it. And so I think that unfortunately there is some, opportunity for consolidation as well as collaboration. And so in this difficult time, let me just say that if you're one of those businesses that has not made it, I'm sorry, and it's really unfortunate. And if you're one of those business that's struggling right now, definitely collaboration, and maybe consolidation and expanding into areas where maybe another business went out of business. Unfortunately, the collateral of someone going out of business, leaves a customer without a solution at that point. Okay. And so, I think there's places for both right now. And unfortunately, there are businesses that have not made it. And we have a customer then that has a need that is no longer being served by that business. And so it does present opportunity for collaboration, right now. So I think there's a bit of both.
And I would add that if you are going to consolidate, just think really carefully about who you're going to consolidate with. Because, the marriage of two corporate cultures can be extremely difficult. And so you've got to look at both product and culture before going ahead with that.
Yeah.
I think if I can jump in on that, I think the unique partnership and part of the work I've been doing is between the UK and the US is really looking at exploiting that type of situation, whereas US companies tend to have more focus into that market capture type situation, whereas the UK is particularly good at the innovation, but not the market capture. So that combination could be, again, a unique competitive advantage with the special partnership there between the UK and the US.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
And building on what Raymond's saying, if we he keeps talking about the advantages that the UK has and the advantages that the US has, and I just keep coming back to this thing about thinking outside of the box. And actually, there is a really good company called Out of the Box Manufacturing who's doing this really well. And so a few people have said to me, "Oh, why would I attend a Transatlantic Aerospace and Defense Summit? I don't do business with the UK." Well, you should be doing business with the UK. Just because you're a small company with only 10 employees, it doesn't mean there's not opportunity for you. Okay, so where do you get started? So you go to organizations like Mark's organization, like British American Business Connections, and you find out, okay, the UK government is investing 20 billion in defense spending. How do I be a part of this? Don't think that because you're small, you have to stay within your box within Washington State or whatever state you're in. Use the people that are out there on LinkedIn and presenting at these events to get connected with the right people, because you're never too small to do business with the UK.
If I could jump in there again, we go back to government. They're very keen on this. So the commerce departments, the US Commerce Service itself. I would even go on the UK side. Our own Department of International Trade is looking for those type of connections to find opportunities in the UK and vice versa back. I think what we really need, and they tend to look at it a company at a time, is really having a kind of conversation that brings those things together in a collaborative way. I think there's a whole lot of dialogue that would come from that would facilitate and help finance that as well.
Yeah, so I know that, like I told you, we have viewers from all around the world, that watch this. And I can say to people that are watching in the UK, I constantly have people coming and saying, we'd like to do business with people in the US. All right. And so, in the Puget Sound area, in the Washington area, there's a lot of aerospace companies that do business, all around the world. Hey, I like to continue to acknowledge people as they're with us and joining us. And we have some watchers from Washington State here. I think that's a friend of yours, right, Fiona?
Yeah.
And then I also got a lot of really good friends down in Sao Paulo, and we have people really all around the world that watch us from everywhere. And there's a lot of great aviation companies in Brazil. Embraer is down there in Brazil and create a lot of great aircraft. And so I just really appreciate the fact that we have people that watch us from all around the world, because I believe that word you brought up, collaboration, is so important.
Yes.
And when we're sitting here today, listen, in what world in the past could we have a conversation with people on all the continents around the world, at one time? All right. And so this virtual world that we're into right now makes it so much easier for us to be able to be successful in collaborating. Right now, I'm having a conversation with someone that's about 100 miles away from me and someone that's about 3,000 miles away from me, all at the same time. All right. And it's because of this virtual world we're in that we're able to do that. Hey, listen, let's continue the conversation about small to medium enterprises. I want to just ask a question here. Fiona, can you give us an idea, either Fiona or Raymond, I'm not sure. Can you give us an idea of in the UK, is it about how much of of the businesses there are small to medium enterprises? I mean, what's the big company versus small company kind of ratios that exist out there?
And in the UK, it's quite predominant. It's 99% are the small, medium-sized enterprises. A little more in the US. It's a little different. So actually, the small, medium-sized enterprises kind of dominates in the economy here, and also that's why really the stimulus and focus should be on that sector, on the small, medium-sized enterprise sector, where the stimulus needs to go, where that recovery will come from, and that's particularly the case in the UK.
Yeah, and I'm from Lancashire, which is in the northwest of the United Kingdom, and that area is the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, and so there's so many great small and medium-sized manufacturers there, and I would just love to see them be doing business with the US and partnering up.
Okay, yeah. Absolutely. Hey, I got a question here I want to throw up. I was just looking at it. It's from Ivan again, and I'm going to direct this over to you guys and just see what you think you have to say. Let me put that up there real quick.
Is that Ivan Rosenberg? Oh, no, Ivan Remmels.
Yep. He said he was from Belgium, so he's over there in that region, and he's asking a question here that says, is more UK-US collaboration and anticipation on Brexit obstacles, toward the EU Aero? So how is Brexit obstacles creating collaboration harder or easier, or what are your thoughts on that?
I would put it the other way around. Actually, what Brexit has created is that kind of bilateral trade type of arrangements, and really looking at, and which helps collaboration continue. I think from the EU Aero situation, obviously over here in the UK, that Airbus situation, a strengthening of the companies within the supply chain actually enhances that relationship with the EU. I think nothing's really going to change on that, except from the Brexit opportunity, I think, is where Britain can really and needs to look at these new collaborative bilateral trade situations. Could actually be the very things that shores up the aerospace situation over here in Europe.
Do you think it's going to make collaboration harder or easier, or what do you think?
I think it's going to force collaboration from the point of view of putting in the stability that's needed in the supply chains. I think the shock of, all of a sudden the safe aerospace region, all of a sudden the shock of literally a 70% drop off, it kind of shocks into things that we thought would be there forever, actually can be quite fragile in these kind of economic shocks.
So Raymond, do you mean there's going to be more collaboration within the UK between UK manufacturers, or there'll be continued collaboration with manufacturers in the EU?
I think it's a combination of both, because in the sense we're looking at the quality of the businesses, the quality of the relationships between the businesses that can then supply the markets. So from an Airbus point of view, they're looking at consolidation in the UK, whereas Boeing's looking at that kind of expansion type. They spend $2 billion plus in the UK within the manufacturing sector. So really, I think it's a different mindset. It's really looking at the SMEs in their own, the SME enterprises in their own right, and what they can do themselves, as well as move into other markets that aren't necessarily the aero market. And I would add healthcare, defense, and particularly space.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add is that I find that throughout time, I'm really a believer in this, that certain critical events cause things to accelerate faster, okay? Like when we saw the internet in the 2000s, and when we saw, maybe obstacles in aviation. But, like for example, if I look at a business, if a business decides they're going to buy a new fleet of aircraft, there's an event that occurs in their business which drives them to have to do things differently, all right? Is that they have to have different ground equipment, different software, different skills. And so they're driven because of the event to create new successes, surrounding that event. We're seeing the same thing that's happening around, the economic downturn in aviation, because of the coronavirus. There are things that have happened. They're causing us to do things differently, like be more virtual. All right. And you've just talked about things like Brexit, like, for example, which are going to force the requirement to do more collaboration. And so my opinion is that we leverage those events in time to create success, not be deterred by them or be pushed back by them. Yeah.
I think it goes back to the dominance that was with the big original equipment manufacturers. In fact, they're in shock themselves, aren't they? They kind of, how can the government can support that? The UK is fairly unique because the OEMs, Rolls-Royce is one of the few you can talk about, but really the predominance of the world-class skills within small, medium-sized enterprises is within that supply chain and then supporting the Boeings and the Airbuses. So it really is realizing what power does reside within small to medium enterprises working together into new markets as well as supporting those great companies they do.
Hey, let's switch to another topic having to do with small to medium enterprises. I know that small companies are always challenged by having capital to be able to operate successfully, especially in a time where things are really, really tight right now, and some companies were positioned well, with capital and cash in order to be able to make it through difficult times, and others were not. Is that you've done some research on capital and the impact of that on small businesses? Do you have some thoughts on how they could be obtaining the needed capital to be able to be successful, Raymond?
Yeah, it's really interesting because over here in the UK, the private equity firms have come in quite strongly, realizing that they could, in a sense, look at purchasing supply chains and really understand if SMEs can get together and collaborate, is really present that opportunity. Now, to give some idea of the size of the capital that's available, it's over $2 trillion. I mean, we're talking a lot of money, but these people are looking for where is the future growth and value. It's really presenting that is within the SME supply chains themselves. And there's many examples over here. For example, Cobham, the defense manufacturer, was taken over by a US private equity company and taken private for that very reason. Suddenly seeing the value in those supply chains. So
Raymond, I want to add something to that just from personal experience. I just want to tell you this, is that a couple of months ago, I had a business partner of mine, come to me and say, there's somebody that I'm working with in Belgium, and they see an opportunity right now in aviation aerospace, and they have $100 million that they want to put in right now and invest in the industry in a new business venture. Okay. And so I'm telling you, this isn't just hypothetical, because I personally, am involved right now in putting together an opportunity that will be $100 million investment. And so, this is real right now. Okay. You're not just throwing numbers out there and people think, well, is this really real? Well, it is. I'm just telling you from my own personal experience, it's real right now.
And I would add as well, as key British private equity companies building their funds, looking to where they put them and really looking at that investment on the supply chains themselves, not necessarily the businesses where that supply chain goes. I think the other aspect, the whole idea of them as asset strippers, is that's evolved. They are looking for value. They're even taking companies off stock markets to privatize so they can really do this properly. So I'm 100% behind what you found, Mark. It's a real opportunity.
But being here in Seattle, when I think of the private equity and the investment firms, most of them here tend to be focused on the tech companies. So it would be easy to be a business here that's thinking, well, who's going to invest in me? So what are your thoughts on how we break that perception that, private equity firms are mostly looking for tech companies and not manufacturing companies, particularly here in the Pacific Northwest?
Again, I think it's the whole digitalization, isn't it, of manufacturing that could come into allowing that crossover of mentality. In a sense, the whole revolution, the Internet of Things, and what can be brought to bear on manufacturing is part of that revolution of finding that additional value. So in a sense, I think it's fairly easy if you've got an investor class that with that mentality, really understanding the digitalization effect in manufacturing itself. So again, that I think speeds further collaboration or aspect that makes it very attractive to that type of investor, whether you be an angel investor or private equity.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a case of changing the perception of manufacturing. It's not this,
absolutely.
So it's to give it a more modern feel.
And also on the, it's really funny, one of the research that we've done, the recovery post-COVID is very much going to springboard out of that manufacturing base. So let's get that innovation and collaboration happening, and let's get it financed.
Hey, I like to answer not only the easy questions, but the hard ones. And someone had a little bit of a hard question here that they just brought up, and I think it's appropriate to the conversation. I'm going to throw it up. It's from, I having trouble with the name, but Sagan Desenya. And he says, I keep hearing from the experts that the economy future is in Africa. My question is that the industry game players always shy away from Africa in terms of innovation and technology. I wanted to know your guys' kind of thoughts is that why might someone, and I know you're not an expert in Africa, but I just want to get your opinion because I have an opinion as well, but why would people shy away from or lean toward investing in a country like the African region?
I think the unique opportunity from the UK point of view is, remember, we have our Commonwealth, which includes quite a few countries in Africa. Also, the African countries are very much in the same mindset, in fact, encouraging, looking for people to kind of work with them and collaborate with them. And in key sectors. So I think the issue is that Africa realizes that it really wants to get into the game and can be rapid growth, but it needs to do that with the expertise and core competencies we can bring to bear from the US and the UK. So again, through the networks we can, through our governments, we can take advantage of that because there's a ready-made, please come and work with us. How can we work with you within Africa? So Africa does have its potential, but again, it's going to be that collaborative approach. And I believe fundamentally between small, medium-sized enterprises in those countries working with ours.
Fiona, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, mine's more of a coach / psychological perspective. And if you look at the human brain, we like the brain works to look at what we are familiar with. And so we get comfortable doing business between the UK and the US and Europe. And because it's essentially outside of our comfort zone doing business with Africa. And so really, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, getting outside of the box, challenging your beliefs, challenging the way you think about other opportunities in other places in the world. And to be able to do some of that, we're going to need, once the skies open up again, we need those trade missions both ways, because there is a whole wealth of opportunity in Africa. It's a great place for investment. And you've seen Boeing's really doing a lot of work with Morocco. And I think the innovation and creativity extends well beyond that. And so I think that, as the opportunities arise, we really need to start looking across the whole continent and really start thinking, how can I effectively run my supply chain so that we can collaborate with somebody from a completely different continent to what we're used to.
And I think it's the entrepreneurial mindset as well. It's really, because we can do it on the screen, you'd be surprised how the synergies that will come across very quickly working with some key African small, medium-sized enterprises as well. And our governments are there to encourage, support, and finance that in the strangest of ways as well. So be open, be bold.
Get out of that box.
I think when we find ourselves in changing economies, we need to look in every corner for where the opportunities are. I used to work at Boeing, and one of the early 787s that was implemented was at Ethiopian Airlines. All right. And Ethiopian had a whole crew of people at the Aircraft Commerce Virtual Summit or Virtual Conference last week. And so, they're very active in looking at how they can continue to grow. I've been to South Africa, I've been to Uganda, I've been to lots of different places, in Africa. And it does present its challenges. Okay, economically, there are some challenges there. However, just about every major emerging country in the world has need for air transport, and that's how they move forward in commerce, in their world. And so it does represent opportunities for aviation aerospace, everywhere in the world. Now we have to look at the economics of doing business with, one region or another, and it becomes a challenge in what you invest and what you do. But there definitely are some aviation aerospace opportunities that exist, in the African continent, and we should be looking at them. There's no question about that. Yeah.
And you should also be looking at, like culturally, just how business is done differently in different countries. I mean, even me coming to the US, there are huge differences between the UK and the US in the way that people do business. And so, when you're talking to somebody from another continent and their way of doing business is different to yours, be open to that, learn about that. They might start more so with the relationship side before you go in for the discussion on business. They might not get down to the facts straight away because they want to build trust with you. And that's okay. It's just different.
I think the other thing is at the present time, you'd be surprised at the enthusiasm to explore that and work together. And it's interesting seeing someone from Sao Paulo. Brazil is a classic example of that, reaching out with enthusiasm and drive. Please come and work with us. We got our collaborative hubs here and growth hubs and innovation hubs, literally setting it up to walk in and work with them. So don't be surprised how enthusiastic you'll be accepted.
I have a lot of really great followers down in Brazil. I've spent a lot of time down in Brazil. I've done some work at Brazilian Gol and Embraer and all over the place down there. And, there's a lot of great people. I really enjoy working with the people in Brazil. And so I have actually a lot of followers down there. So, same goes for South America. Latin America is what it does with other countries. But hey, listen, we're talking about collaboration and opportunities, and we're talking about how we can, grow our businesses and connect with people and things. There's a great opportunity coming up here this week, actually, Fiona, which is the Transatlantic Aerospace and Defense Virtual Summit. And I know that you are somehow participating in that. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What is it, and why would somebody want to go to it?
So they would want to go to that because the ROI on the event is just, the return on investment is just fantastic. Tickets are between $30 and $50, and you're going to see some world-class speakers. And we're going to be talking about what the recovery is going to look like, where those supply chain opportunities are going to come first, how you can take advantage of the investment by the UK and US governments in the defense industry, and how you can be a part of that. And I just think, there's going to be people there from different continents, and we're just looking for 6 hours of your time to meet new people, build those relationships, learn about those opportunities first, so that you can hit the ground running in 2021. I mean, what a perfect month to do this in.
Okay. And Raymond, are you involved in that as well?
Yeah, so we'll be presenting a bit more of the work that I've been doing with a colleague of mine, and really kind of setting up to stay open to the opportunities that we presented through the conference. And I think we've got some excellent speakers, and also we'll present the challenges, but also the opportunities, and also some signposting to where to go to get them.
I guess
it's also going to be. It's also going to, the attendees are going to be the first people to access this economic report. So you'll get to see the whole document and its details, and all the ways that you can take advantage before everybody else. So get in there first.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess I've gotten a little chummy with you, Raymond. I should be calling you Dr. Davies. You've done
No, I like it. I think it's like everything else. We do our intellectual thing because it's what we enjoy. But Raymond, I love it.
All right. Okay. Well, anyway, Dr. Davies has done a tremendous amount of PhD research on this subject, and actually has a lot of practical knowledge. And you put together, the practical knowledge of Fiona and all the different people that are in the event. There's a lot of different speakers there. Fiona, there's a few people here I recognize. Can you tell us something about the supply chain panel?
Kind of. It's mostly been Catherine that's been prepping all the panels.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, the first person I recognized was Emily Whitman there, and she was with the AFA. She organized the AFA conference just a few months ago here. So yeah. Yeah.
No, I can't remember all 20 names of all the people that are speaking, but we've got Valerie's going to be talking to us about the Boeing defense supply chain. Chris Game.
I'll jump in as well, because we managed to get the chair of the House of Commons Select Committee for Defence on board, his next minister as well. So he's going to give some pointers to where be part of the extra $20 billion spend in defence. So I can give you, a classic example there. And because we're doing with our great sponsors, Boeing, you can imagine the usual people that know what they're talking about and point you in the right direction.
Excellent. And even better, there's going to be loads of cool accents. The UK has tons of different accents. Yeah. Oh, and this panel, I am super excited about this panel. You know how most conferences that you go to, there's an analyst panel and everybody looks the same. And this one, we have a female analyst, Mariana. And Mariana is just fabulous. She works for Ron Epstein, one of the best analyst teams in the industry. And Mariana actually presented at the Leading Ladies of Aerospace conference in September, and everybody was emailing me afterwards. Can I have Mariana's slides? Can you put me in touch with Mariana? So I am delighted that we're going to have that fresh new perspective in one of the analyst panels. That's
fantastic. Hey, so if someone wants to join, tell us when the event is, Fiona.
It's on Thursday. So Thursday, 7 a.m. for networking, 7:30 a.m. kickoff. and it runs till 1 o'clock, and then there's some optional things from 1 till 2 o'clock. And you just head over to our website and get signed up, or, you know, if you need to, reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'll get you hooked up.
Great. Hey, Fiona, you're very excited usually on the things that you're engaged in. Why are you most excited about this virtual summit?
I am most excited about it because it's bringing together two of my favorite things, the UK and the US. And I would just love to see more business between, you know, these two great countries and other countries too. And also the event's been arranged by 5 fabulous women, not including me. And so I just love seeing what can be pulled off when you get a bunch of smart and fantastic women together. So, okay, you know, Catherine and Carly and the team at PNDC, you know, fabulous job. And so I can't wait to just see everyone's faces when we see what they've put together.
Raymond, what's the biggest thing you're hoping to get out of this upcoming event?
I think to really illustrate the US-UK partnership and very much how that collaboration and integration between small, medium-sized supply chains could be furthered. And then I think from that, and I think it goes back to Fiona's point, I think really the interconnectability we have globally from the US point of view and the UK now left the EU and Brexit with its Commonwealth across the globe. So I think this will illustrate it on the conference and the speakers. Great. It's just huge opportunities, not only between the UK and US, but the globe as well.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I have been promoting all year long that, you know, we need to work together. We need to collaborate. Listen, the whole purpose for this broadcast that I do on a regular basis is recovery in aviation. Now, you know, when I did a virtual summit in August, I asked myself, should I really be talking about recovery in aviation? Because there's a lot of sectors of the business, of the industry that are doing really well right now. All right. And so, you know, but the whole topic of recovery in aviation, listen, we were doing fantastic, you know, last year, and the industry was just thriving. We had a lot of things that have changed this year, which have caused us to have to reevaluate. Being virtual, networking, connecting with people, and looking for new opportunities and business partners and collaboration, you know, consolidation, all those different things really are part of being successful for small to medium enterprises. If you want an opportunity to be able to grow your business, you need to go to this event. And you need to collaborate with people, and you need to connect virtually, because it is the basis for us connecting in business. If people don't know who you are, how can you grow your business? Okay. And so going to virtual events and connecting and networking with people is extremely important, essential part of doing business.
And follow Mark, because Mark he has some fabulous events and he teaches people so much. And, you know, I know he's not here to self-promote, but I'm going to promote him anyway. Like, he has just been fabulous to so many people in the industry. So if you're not following him yet, you make sure you follow him on LinkedIn, because there is a whole host of opportunity with Mark and his team.
Okay, Fiona, I wasn't going to do this, but on Saturday, I'm actually doing a boot camp. Okay.
Yes, he is.
If you guys are interested in learning more about operating in a virtual world, I have a boot camp on Saturday that I'm doing Saturday this week, and you can sign up for it right there at bootcamp.digitalaircraft.org. All right. I wasn't going to bring it up because this was all about Fiona and Raymond, but I brought it up. You did it, so I brought it up.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that I was recently at PNDC's annual celebration, and they had this really great panel that talks about how you network and how you do business in a virtual world. And like, that was just a taste. That was 20 minutes. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, people just need to talk to Mark. And so if you were at that PNDC event, you make sure you sign up for this, because that's going to give you tons of tools to help you with getting recognized out there. Hey, I'm a big Mark fan, so.
Yeah, well, let me tell you where this comes from is that you can see 3 people on the screen here that are passionate about what they do, all right? Yeah. And I've been passionate about aviation, aerospace, airlines, MROs, you know, my entire career. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I said to myself, I need to leverage the digital space, the digital world, to be able to help aviation to move forward. In the last 3 to 4 years, I have been focusing on digital transformation, getting a message out virtually, using video, using social media, and using these kind of mediums like what we have right here to be able to get aviation's message out, because I want aviation to be successful, especially in a difficult time like this. All right. And so I so much appreciate you guys and your enthusiasm for what you do in aviation aerospace. And, it just comes out in what you guys do and your big smiles and your wide eyes. And I thank you for, for just being part of what you do. Hey, listen, guys, let's wrap it up here. I appreciate you guys being on the broadcast today. And I look forward to hearing the results of your upcoming event on Thursday.
We'll see you there,
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark.
See you there, everyone.
I'm going to sign off here today and tell you thank you, everybody, for joining in our Recovery in Aviation broadcast. And I'll finish like I always do and say fair winds and following seas. You guys have a great day. Bye.
Bye. Anybody still there?